Okay, folks, this online lecture is probably going to be a two-part lecture, okay? I'll try to keep it brief, but there's a lot to cover because we have several poems. We were talking in class, as you recall last week, about modernism, and specifically the movement within the modernist period, or modernist literary tradition, called imagism. We're going to be dealing a little bit more with that this time, but let me just recap for you again. Modernism is, at its heart, is a movement that seeks to provide an alternate way of seeing reality that takes as its starting point the idea that reality itself is only understandable on an individual basis, in fragments, discrete units, or individual experiences, images, or elements. Hence the interest in imagism, right? Because if you believe that that's how human beings perceive things, through individual discrete images or sounds or elemental experiences, then that's what you want to use in your art, okay? Now, but we've been talking about poetry, but remember that modernism is really a movement that encompasses all types of art and even architecture. And so, for example, I've got a couple of examples down here. The bottom left-hand side is Salvador Dali's Persistence of Memory, a very famous painting of his from the surrealist tradition, very interested in exploring the dreamlike states of subconsciousness and what they reveal about human behavior and human attitudes and the human experience. And then you've got on the other side over there, Guernica, which is a painting from Pablo Picasso about the bombing of the city of Guernica during the Spanish Civil War. Between the Republicans on the one hand and the two different sides there in the war. Basically, the fascists and the socialists or communists, if you will, the human atrocity is what he's trying to present there. The screaming, the death, the pain, animal imagery, etc. Because it's hard to comprehend that kind of tragedy. They bombed basically innocent civilians. They bombed an entire city into rubble and killed thousands and thousands of people. This is something that ordinary human experience, we just can't encompass that in our minds. Why would something like this happen, etc.? So, from a perspective of a painter like Picasso, he's trying to show you, bits and pieces. It doesn't really tell a story. It gives you, sort of shocking, glaring bits and pieces of the tragedy and of the inhumanity that was experienced there. You also see a lot of simplicity of design with modernism because, again, it wants to focus on very elemental things, right? So take a look at a sort of a modernist piece of furniture there. It's geometric figures, it's sleek lines, it's simplicity. The architecture over there, that's modernist architecture on the bottom right-hand side of a house. It's again geometric and very elemental, right? It's not ornate. Ornateness. What does ornateness imply to you in art? Well, it suggests an ideal sort of beauty. How do you have an ideal sort of beauty unless you have a consensus on what an ideal is? And modernists don't really have that. They have a view that you have to understand things by piecing the puzzle together, rather than being presented with something that's sort of floral and scrolly and here's beauty. Okay, modernists don't begin with the assumption of knowing what beauty is. They want you to discover it. They want you to try to find it because that's what they're trying to do. Anyway, it's a more complex sort of way of viewing art in the world. But the writers of the period are really kind of experimenting with subjects, techniques, and forms that challenge the very assumptions of how we construct knowledge out of our experiences, and even how we construct beauty and what beauty is, right? Because it's not going to be like, Keats, who says, beauty is truth, truth, beauty, that is all ye know and all ye need to know. Well, the modernist would say, well, wait a minute, I can't figure out what truth is. So how am I going to figure out what beauty is, right? So with that in mind, let's dive into H.D.'s poem, Eurydice. You have to know a little bit of background of Greek mythology, not a lot though, and that is that Eurydice is trapped in the underworld. She's married to Orpheus, who is the great musician of Greek mythology. He's so amazing as a musician that he enchants everyone when he plays musical instruments and such. And he even enchants, Hades, who's in charge of the underworld. And he goes down into the underworld to retrieve his bride, Eurydice. Okay? This is the simple, fast version of it. There's lots of different versions of it, in fact. But at the end of the day, he is given the opportunity to retrieve her out of the underworld by simply playing his music. She will follow behind, and they will exit Hades' underworld together, as long as he doesn't look back at her, right? As long as he doesn't look back. Guess what he does? Well, of course, he looks back at her. And, of course, everyone wonders, well, why did he do that, right? Why did he do that? Eurydice. This is a dramatic monologue. This poem is the type of poem that's called a dramatic monologue. That is it is the voice of a single character giving a single sort of speech or statement. So dramatic character, right? Like in a play. Monologue, just one voice being heard. And she is asking the same question. Why did you do that? Why did you look back? Is it out of some pervert? Were you like tormenting me, etc.? Let's follow through. It's a rather lengthy poem, but we'll skip around a bit if you don't mind. She begins with, "So you have swept me back, I who could have walked with the live souls above the earth, I who could have slept among the live flowers at last. So for your arrogance, for your ruthlessness, I am swept back, where the dead lichens drip and dead cinders upon moss of ash." Now you have to understand the Greek concept of the underworld was a very sort of boring, dull, tasteless, colorless place, right? It's just kind of a drab existence for eternity. Unlike, the real world up here, where it's color and light and sound, and, it's the pizza tastes good. It's not like cardboard pizza down in Hades, right? You can smell the wildflowers, etc. But down there in the dead zone, there's nothing. So she's bitter and resentful. It's interesting that she says, "So for your arrogance and your ruthlessness." Let's return to that in a moment. Why does she feel that way? She keeps saying that again and again. For your arrogance, I am broken at last. I who had lived unconscious, who was almost forgot. If you had let me wait, I had grown from listlessness into peace. If you had let me rest with the dead, I had forgot you in the past. Okay? Why did you even bother to come down here if you weren't going to follow through? Why did you do this to me? Why get my hope up? Why make me, dream and long for life again? Why didn't you just leave me alone? Now, okay, if you don't already know that this poem isn't just about the mythological story of Eurydice and Orpheus, that this is basically HD talking about a relationship she once had, some guy that, they'd broken up, etc., and then he tries to rekindle things and then just leaves again. Why didn't you just leave me alone? Why did you come back into my life? I could have gotten used to living without you, and you came back and you did it again, right? I'd have been way better off if you'd never even come back and gotten my hopes up that there might be something between us again. I'm fairly certain this is what's going on in the poem, okay? So let's skip around here just a little bit. Why did you turn back that hell should be re-inhabited? Right? Because that is the big question. Orpheus, why does he turn back and look at her? I mean, he knows what the rule is. He's got to basically not look at her. He plays kind of like the Pied Piper. He has to play all the way out the exit, and she has to come out the exit, and then they're good. They're good. They're married, right? This is his bride. Why did you turn? Why did you glance back? Why did you hesitate for that moment? Why did you bend your face caught with the flame of the upper earth above my face? What was it that crossed my face with the light from yours and your glance? What was it you saw in my face? Right? Saffron from the fringe of the earth, wild saffron that has bent over the sharp edge of earth. All the flowers that cut through the earth, all the flowers are lost. Everything is lost. Everything is crossed with black. Black upon black and worse than black. This colorless light, right? So now that you've done this and you tried to re-enter my life and you've left again, it's even worse than if you just left me there. I'm in a colorless, dark place right now, emotionally. And remember, and one of the things that's so dominant in the poem is her discussion of flowers. What are flowers? Flowers are beautiful to look at. They're colorful. They're vibrant. They're life itself. Most flowers, I guess, tend to bloom in the spring when life is renewed, right? And they have a fragrance. And so in terms of our senses, flowers are a very wonderful thing. It's a great thing about being alive, is experiencing and enjoying flowers, right? And she loved flowers, right? She's got, in the voice of Eurydice, I love, it's one of my favorite things about life, and now I can't experience that because you did what you did. And the great mystery is, why did he turn back? Does he turn? She calls it arrogance, obviously. Why does he turn back? Does he turn back because he simply can't help himself? He doubts himself. He doubts whether she's following him. He doubts, or maybe it is the arrogance of it. Like, I'm so great. I just have to see. I just have to see how well I can mesmerize people. Or maybe it was just this perverse impulse to just say, nah, I'm not going to do it. Right? Nah, I'm just going to go about my own. Is it narcissism? Is it arrogance? Is it, this sort of egotism of his? There's no answer. There's no answer for you. There's no answer for me. There's no answer for Eurydice in this poem because she doesn't know. Hello, modernism, right? I can't figure it out, right? I see your behavior and I can't make it make sense. You see? All I have is what you did, but I certainly can't figure out what's going on here, right? Why did this fall apart? Why did you even bother to come back? And everything. So for your arrogance and your ruthlessness, she keeps using the word ruthlessness, which is kind of, you don't care. You don't care. You have absolutely no compassion, right? I have lost the earth and the flowers of the earth and the live souls above the earth. And you who passed across the light and reached ruthless. You who have your own light, who are to yourself a presence. There's the egotism. You have your own light. You are your own presence to yourself. Okay. Who need no presence. Yet for all your arrogance and your glance, I tell you this. Even for all of that, I tell you this. Such loss is no loss. Such terror, such coils and strands and pitfalls of blackness, such terror is no loss. Hell is no worse than your earth above the earth. Hell is no worse. No, nor your flowers, nor your veins of light, nor your presence are a loss. My hell is no worse than yours. Though you pass among the flowers and speak with the spirits above the earth. Look, you think I'm in hell? You're in hell and you just don't know it. Because you don't have something that we could have had. We could have had something beautiful. And you don't realize it, but you're missing out on something. So you go on and you just enjoy your life while I'm in misery here. But let me tell you something. You're not actually enjoying your life. You think you are. And for me, it's no loss. Losing you is no loss. Because I would not have had heaven and beauty in my life with you anyway. Because now I know. The last stanza, stanza 7. At least I have the flowers of myself, of my thoughts. No God can take that. Right? I have my thoughts. I have my flowers of my thoughts. Right? I can live with myself. I don't know how you can live with yourself. I have the fervor of myself for a presence and my own spirit for light. Right? At least I am self. I may be miserable and I may have darkness and I may not have joy in my life, but I have satisfaction in knowing who I am. And my spirit with its loss knows this. Though small against the black, small against the formless rocks, hell must break before I'm lost. Right? Hell will pass away before I'm lost. I'm never going to be lost because I have myself. And I am satisfied with myself and with what I am. Before I am lost, hell must open like a red rose for the dead to pass. Now here's the question I've got for you. It's quite a profound, defiant ending there. Should we believe her? I don't know. It sounds very brave, okay? But the first part of the poem sure doesn't sound very brave to me. It sounds very injured and wounded and hurt. Why did you do this? At the end, she musters up or summons up, admirably, I must say, this sense of, I am self-reliant. I don't need someone else to make me happy. But in the backdrop of that is an admission that I will not have the joy that we could have had together. I won't have that. But believe me when I tell you, you're not going to have much joy in your life once it sinks in on you what you've done. And I will always have in my own mind, though my life may in the underworld may not be terribly pleasant like it could have been, I at least am satisfied with who I am and what I've done in my life. Right? So you go about yours and try to find joy all you can. I doubt you will. I'd like to believe she really feels that way, right? It's a stoic sort of ending, for sure. But at the same time, it's a little bit ambiguous. One, obviously we have Eurydice, but the poet herself seems to be providing kind of a comparison between herself and Eurydice. This is not about Greek mythology alone, right? Okay, it's about something else going on with the poet. HD. She's trying to make a statement here about something that's happened in her life. How sincere she is in being able to say, nope, that didn't hurt. I'm okay. I'll live through this. You have to decide, I guess. You've met people who have been through bad things and they tell you, nope, didn't hurt me. And you think, I bet it did, but okay. All right, that's okay. I support you anyway. Anyway, it's an interesting poem from that reason, for those reasons. And next we'll move on to some of our other poets and talk about women, especially in the 1920s.